Good morning, students. Today, my topic is instrumental delivery, instrumental vaginal delivery. Coming to the definition, is delivery of a baby vaginally using any instrument for assistance. Instrumental operative delivery is cesarean, whereas this is a vaginal delivery. The incidence is, it varies widely in different countries. It is may be used infrequently as 1.5% to 26%. Indications of this instrumental delivery, these are either ventouse or forceps. First, we'll discuss about the indications of instrumental delivery. Fetal indications are fetal distress. Fetal distress means altered fetal heart rate. As you all know, normal fetal heart rate is 120 to 160 beats per minute, and any alteration that is less than 110 beats or more than 170, one less than 120 or 110 and more than 160 to 170 is altered fetal heart rate. That is, it can be either bradycardia or tachycardia. Anything is called a fetal distress that is detected either clinically by a meconium stained liquor. Baby passes meconium, and that is seen in the liquor as greenish colored amniotic fluid. Normally it is clear, but if it is greenish colored, then you have to suspect it as fetal distress. When you do a rupture of membranes during the process of vaginal delivery, if you find a green colored liquor, it is called meconium stained liquor. That indicates you have to intervene either by instruments, or if not, if it is a severe thick meconium, you have to go for a cesarean. It depends upon whether it is thin meconium or moderate or thick meconium. Thick meconium means it is severe fetal distress. Then objective evidence is, you put a cardiotocograph, it should be abnormal, non-reactive CTG, and while doing a fetal blood sampling, you can detect fetal distress. Next, coming to the maternal efforts, maternal indications are inadequate expulsive efforts. Some patients are exhausted very easily, they don't bear down properly. That is a good indication for instrumental vaginal delivery. Then a prolonged second stage. Prolonged second stage is from the full dilatation to the delivery of the baby. And in a normal primigravida, it can be prolonged up to maximum 2 hours, and in a multi second gravida more up to 1 hour. And if it exceeds that time, it is called prolonged second stage. And if the patient is on regional anesthesia, that is epidural analgesia, it is also called painless labor. Some patients prefer that. If the patient is on epidural analgesia, that second stage will prolong to 3 hours in a primigravida and 2 hours in a second gravida. If that time also exceeds, then it is called prolonged second stage. Then coming to maternal exhaustion. Maternal exhaustion means patient is on latent phase of labor for long hours, 12 to 18 hours. So the patient is exhausted, dehydrated, and not able to bear down properly. Then a previous cesarean section, usually post cesarean, if you put any forceps, there is a high chance that the scar may rupture and patient may go into shock. Then if she has undergone a genital prolapse repair, some patients will have nulliparous prolapse before pregnancy. They may have a prolapse and that has been repaired. Such patients you cannot put the instrument. Uh, Next, medical indications to cut short the second stage of labor. Cardiac disease, that is NYHA, New York Heart Association classification, class 3 or 4. Then severe preeclampsia, eclampsia, hypertensive crisis, uncorrected cerebral vascular malformations, myasthenia gravis, spinal cord injury. All these are medical complications where if the second stage is left for the normal 2 hours, then patient may develop other complications like cardiac failure in a cardiac disease. In severe preeclampsia, patient may go into eclampsia. In a hypertensive crisis, patient may go into eclampsia. All these medical diseases will get worsen if you leave the second stage as it is. It is better to cut short the second stage for the benefit of the mother. Next, instrumental delivery, basically two types. This instrumental delivery, it is very important in mostly in practicals also, and in theory you will get in short notes, and in practicals usually they'll put the instruments, and you will be asked questions about these instruments. Uh, Coming to ventouse, there are two types of instrumental delivery: ventouse and forceps. Ventouse, or it is also called vacuum in the routine practice. Uh, this is the ventouse. Next, ventouse is an instrumental device designed to assist delivery by creating, what is the mechanism is, it creates a vacuum between the instrument and the fetal scalp. That creates an artificial caput. Normally in a newborn, caput succedaneum is formed. That is due to excessive molding, excessive pressure. There will be a swelling over the scalp, that is called caput succedaneum. That is different. That is naturally it is formed. Here it then artificial caput is formed by the ventouse. This is also called chignon. This holds the head firmly and allows the traction. This ventouse is also called vacuum extractor. This is the chignon, or the artificial caput, which is formed by the ventouse. Coming to the just the names of who has started this vacuum. First, James Young. He was a surgeon who first tried to assist the delivery by using a cupping glass fitted to the fetal scalp and combined with an air pump. James Simpson, he was the first credited with the use of the first vacuum extractor. Armstrong introduced the vacuum extractor, which has been widely accepted. And Bird was the person who modified the cup by separating the traction device from the suction tubing. It allows improved traction and prevents slippage of the cup. And there are various types of the vacuum cups: metal cups, semi-rigid, that is made of flexible plastic. Soft cups are silicone cups. Kiwi Omni cup is a cup made of rigid plastic. These cups come of various sizes: 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters diameters. And these are all the metal cups which you are seeing. And these are the semi-rigid cups. Rigid plastic, this is it. And this is the soft silicone plastic, silicone or plastic soft cups. This is the Kiwi Omni cup, which is the rigid plastic cup. Here is the vacuum release button. So this vacuum you also might have seen in the movie Three Idiots, where he uses a vacuum, normal vacuum which you use in the house. He uses it and maintains the pressure. What are the prerequisites for ventouse? Is the presentation should be cephalic. This is the most important. Only for when the head is the presenting part only, you can use the ventouse, and it should be well flexed, and membranes must be ruptured, and no evidence of any CPD. These are the prerequisites for ventouse. Membranes, after the membrane rupture only you can apply it. And the cervical dilatation must be sufficient to admit the cup. Usually, the maximum cervical dilatation is 10 centimeters, and the biparatal diameter of the head is 9.5. So 10 centimeters will be adequate for the head to come out. And for the vacuum, usually you don't for put a forceps full cervical dilatation 10 centimeters. You must be there. You should not feel even a little bit of cervix around the head. The full cervical dilatation for forceps, but for ventouse, 7 to 8 centimeters, you can go for a ventouse, because you don't put the instrument doesn't hold the entire head. It will hold the some part of the head. You can avoid the cervix and keep it exactly precisely on the point. So larger cup is safer and more efficient, and prerequisites is head should be well engaged. Engagement means the greatest diameter of the fetal head, that is greatest diameter is the biparatal. Between the two parietal eminences it is 9.5 usually for a vertex presentation. That greatest diameter should pass the pelvic inlet, that is called engagement. If that has been done, then your ventouse delivery will be successful. Then only you can put a ventouse. Otherwise, it is failed procedure. Then in present days, and then the above plus 2 station. This station is based on the ischial spine. If the head is at the level of ischial spines, it is 0 station. 1 centimeter out is plus 1, 2 centimeters out is plus 2, like that. So if the station is if it is above my ischial spines, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, like that. So station, if it is plus 2 or more, it is delivery in the delivery of fetal head is good. Next, obstetrician should be well trained. Skilled obstetrician is required for ventouse. Next, the patient should be kept in lithotomy position. The draping should be done with the betadine. Sterile sheet is applied. Bladder empty. This is very important both for ventouse or forceps. Otherwise, bladder injury, later fistula formation may occur. Bladder should be emptied. That is, you apply a catheter, Knelton's or Foley's, and drain the bladder on the table. A thorough examination to determine the station, position, suture lines, assess the pelvis, and assess the cervical dilatation. Give a pudendal block. Usually pudendal block will be good anesthesia. Then the proper cup placement is most important. How you should keep the cup is, see, this is anterior fontanelle, this is posterior fontanelle, this is the sagittal suture, and this is the cup placement. This center of the cup should be placed in such a way that it should be 3 centimeters from the posterior fontanelle. Should be 3 centimeters in front of the posterior fontanelle. And from the anterior fontanelle, the distance is 6 centimeters. This is the position. This center point is called the flexion point, and this flexion point also, it should be median, not away from the median. It should be this flexion point is very important. If you keep, you should palpate the suture, palpate the fontanelles, and then place it exactly in this position, and then start increasing the pressure. If this placement is not proper, injuries will occur. Next, see, cup placement. This is the correct placement. Here is the posterior fontanelle, and the center of the cup is 3 centimeters in front of it, and from the anterior fontanelle it is 6 centimeters, and it is in the median position. This is called flexing median. Incorrect is paramedian, deflexed. That is, it is more, here you can see it is more towards the anterior fontanelle. This is a deflexed position. It is not well flexed. Here it is a deflexed and both away from the median, paramedian. All these are incorrect placements. And while keeping the cup, most important is the cup should not include any part of the cervix or vagina. Otherwise, while you pull out the vacuum cup with the head, some a bit of cervix or a bit of vaginal part will get torn and severe bleeding will start. And you should be very, you should, with the finger you should palpate around the cup that there is no soft tissue got attached, that you should be very careful. And when using a rigid cup, how you, this pressure, this value is very important. The suction pressure should be initially 0.2 kg per centimeter square, and it is increased every 2 minutes until here this is the maximum 0.8 kg per centimeter square. 0.2 to 0.8, this is the suction pressure. And for a rigid cup, this pressure should be slowly increased every 2 minutes, whereas with a soft cup this negative pressure can be increased every 1 minute. That is the difference. And the traction should be intermittent. That is, whenever the patient is having pain, then you start traction. When the patient is having no pain, that is, when there is no relaxation of the uterus, you stop pulling. When she starts getting the uterine contraction, you start pulling. Then only the baby will descend. You put that is a two hand technique. One hand fingers are placed over the cup, other hand grasps the handle of the instrument. And traction should be sustained during the pain, and the direction of the pull should correspond with the axis of the birth canal. This can be ensured by pulling at right angles to the cup. The higher the head, the more downward the direction of the traction. That means if the head is station is +2 or somewhere +1, you try to up to 0 station you can drive ventus. More than if it is -1 or -1 or -2, there is no use of putting a ventus. At least from 0 +1 you can go for a ventus. And if it is higher, if you should first pull downwards so that the head comes up to the perineum, and then pull upwards based upon the position. And maximum how much time you can take for a ventus. See, forceps will be faster, ventus takes time because the pressure building will take time. 0.2 kg square centimeter to 0.8, that pressure building will take time. The formation of Chignon will take time. So, but maximum you can, because the patient will be in distress, that is the main. If the patient, baby is in distress, better go for forceps. If baby's heart rate is good, then you can, and you can try for a ventus. Then maximum time is 20 minutes is maximum, because cephalohematoma chances are more. And suddenly the vacuum slips off from the head, it pops out. That and again you have to apply that, reapplying maximum 3 times, not more than 3. See, for how that procedure is done is, first you determine the position of the head, whether it is cephalic or not. You see, this is the anterior fontanelle or the bregma, and you start bringing the cup, insert the cup into the vaginal wall. You you try not to include any part of the vaginal tissue or the cervix. Then apply the cup to the flexion point, that is 3 centimeters in front of posterior fontanelle, and medially it should, the sagittal suture should be there. And whenever there is, this is how actually one hand should hold the cup, other hand should hold the handle, and it should be pulled during a contraction with a steady motion, keeping the device at right angles to the cup. The pull should be like this. Actually, with one hand should hold the cup, otherwise it will slip off. And after first straight or down and then up, you pull with a steady motion. And in a occipital posterior, if the fetal head rotates, if you can maintain the right angle. Once if you feel that the jaw has reached the perineum, then you can remove the cup if the jaw has come here. Next, failed vacuum extraction. When you call it a failed ventouse is when the head is not descending with the pull. After 3 pulls also, or after 20 minutes also, the head is not delivered, or the cup with maximum pressure also, if the cup is slipping off, it is called a failed vacuum. What are the complications? Complications are maternally, if you have some part of cervix or vagina has been included with the cup, then there may be a chance of a cervical tear, annual detachment of the cervix, vaginal tear, perineal laceration. All these ventouse or forceps, these are done along with an episiotomy, so that the space will be increased for the head to come. So that you give a small incision of episiotomy, but during the procedure the episiotomy may extend and will become a second degree or a third degree perineal tear, or may involve the anus or the rectum. Next, vaginal valve hematoma, perineal hematoma, traumatic PPH, infections, incompetent os at subsequent pregnancy. Now, if the cervix is injured, means for the next pregnancy, incompetent cervical os and abortions may occur. Next, genital prolapse may occur later. What are the fetal complications? See, fetal complications are always more with the ventouse, and maternal complications, trauma, injuries will be more with forceps. And what are the fetal complications are the hypoxia, particularly when the fetal hypoxia, injury to, because it will take long time, then injury to scalp, cephalohematoma, abrasions, lacerations, intracranial injuries, subgaleal hemorrhage, intraventricular hemorrhage, cerebral hemorrhage, because you are putting it directly, the pressure is on the scalp. So fetal hemorrhages, injuries that to the scalp are more common with ventouse. So for the mother it is good ventouse, for the baby it is not so good. So see, these are the intracranial injuries which occur. This is the caput succedaneum. This is the caput succedaneum. Cephalohematoma means blood collection. Here subgaleal hematoma. This is an epidural hematoma. Next, neonatal jaundice. That is after the delivery, baby may have neonatal jaundice. If the baby is macrosomic, head comes out but shoulder doesn't deliver. That is called shoulder dystocia. That may occur. In preterm babies, they may develop neurological sequelae later. That is cerebral palsy may develop later on. Contraindications for ventouse are for preterm less than 34, it should not be done. When there is a major degree of CPD, you better not try for it. Any soft tissue obstructions or tumors are there. For a breech, face, non-vertex, usually breech and face, you can go for a forceps, that how I'll tell. But for ventouse, only vertex presentation only you can do, because you're putting directly on the sagittal suture. No other presentation you can use it. And the station is, I told you, above zero station you cannot use it. If it is very big baby, you cannot, better go for a cesarean section. Suspected fetal coagulopathies, already there is high chance of hemorrhages, and if the baby is already suspected any coagulopathies, then better not use it. Scalp electrode has been used, or fetal scalp blood, that is scalp blood sampling, to, if it has been performed recently, when a needle has been introduced on the scalp, then better not keep ventouse. That is about ventus. Now coming to forceps. This is the forceps instrument. We'll tell detail about it. This obstetric forceps, this is a pair of instruments designed to assist extraction of the fetal head, thereby accomplishing delivery of the fetus. In modern obstetrics, the previously in olden days, high forceps, mid cavity forceps, axe extraction forceps, all these have used to be done. That is maximum they used to try for a vaginal delivery, even if the station is high, mid cavity or very high station also they used to try, because cesarean section incidence was less, because in previous days there was high chances of infection and anesthesia related complications, so they used to try more on forceps vaginal delivery. But nowadays only we are going more for cesarean section, and we are doing forceps only for usually an outlet obstruction, or if it is only in the low forceps. High forceps, mid cavity forceps, these are not being applied now. Why? Because these are difficult to deliver the baby and also cause severe vaginal trauma, fourth degree perineal tears, cervical tears, and bladder injuries, and too much maternal trauma to the patient compared to a cesarean section. And sometimes the tear will be so high, is so severe that you cannot control the bleeding, you cannot suture it. Then next incidence is 5 to 15% of forceps deliveries. And what is the history is of England. Chamberlain was first person who designed it, and the pelvic curve was to the forceps was given by the Livard, and the English lock was given by Smellie. Tarnier was the person who devised axis traction device, and Keelan's forceps is for rotation and extraction. All these will be dealt now. And what are the conventional tractional forceps are? Short forceps is Wrigley's forceps and short Simpson's forceps. Long forceps are Das forceps and Simpson's forceps. And axis traction forceps are Milne Murray's, Haig Ferguson's, and Barnes forceps. Rotation forceps main is the Keeland's. And for the after coming head of the breech, everything a breech it has delivered up to the head, but head is not coming, then you can apply a Piper's forceps. Then for a cesarean section, you can, in cesarean section also, if it is a floating head, and if you're putting the hand to deliver the baby, head is slipping into the abdomen, and it is not coming, you're not able to catch the head after giving an incision on the uterus, then you can put forceps and pull out the head, and then continue the rest of the procedure. And sometimes you can just two blades you can apply, and a single blade also can be applied to just pull out the head, and then you can do the procedure in cesarean section. Single blade is called vectis. That is mostly for floating heads. When it is not settled, it is moving here and there, the head, then you can use the forceps. These are the forceps position. There are various designs of the forceps. This is Piper's forceps. This is for the after coming head of breech. This is a Barton's forceps. This is a axis traction forceps. And this Keeland's is for rotation. I have told you Keeland's forceps and a Simpson's forceps. This is a long curved obstetric forceps. See you can see the length compared to the previous photo. It is very long. If it is so long, the main advantage is can be applied for a high station. When it is the baby is slightly high up, you can use this forceps. It is relatively heavy. The forceps is called Das forceps. Length is 37 centimeters, and distance between the tips is 2.5, and diameter between the blades is 9 centimeters. That is See, when you lock the both of it, these are the tips. This tips distance will be 2.5, and between the blades maximum distance will be 9 centimeters, so that it can hold the head. Next, so coming to these parts of the forceps, usually in practicals you will be asked about the, if you hold a forceps instrument, tell the parts. You, this is the question usually asked. There will be 4 parts. This is the handle, this is the lock. See, 2 blades are locked. This is the shank, and this part is the blade of the forceps. And see, it only it has an outer ring. This center everything is hollow. This hollow thing is called fenestration. This, so blade, shank, lock, handle, 4 parts. This is important. And this, so this whole part is the blade, fenestration. Okay. And this tip is called toe, and here this part is called heel. And see, it is on the pelvic curve. You know, pelvic curve or curve of Caris, there is a curve in the pelvis. So this forceps is designed along the pelvic curve. Next, so I have already told you the blades, why it is fenestrated: to facilitate good grip and minimize compression. And also blade fenestration decreases weight of the instrument. Toe is the tip, heel is end of the blade. Pelvic curve, it fits on the curve of Caris. Next, cephalic curve. Cephalic curve means, see, this curve is pelvic curve, and this curve is there, no, this fenestration curve which holds the head, that is called cephalic curve. There should be a curve like this, and also inside also there should be a curve, then only it will fit the head, no, that curve is called cephalic curve. So curve on the flat surface which grasps the fetal head is called cephalic curve. Okay. So shank usually 6.25 centimeters, handle usually 12 centimeters. And how, on the, while applying the forceps, how you will know which side is the left blade, which side is the right blade, how you will detect this? You just place the instrument in front of the maternal pelvis, with the tips pointing upwards and the concave side of the pelvic curve forwards. The blade which corresponds the left of the maternal pelvis is left blade. The blade which corresponds the right side of the maternal pelvis is not our left side, mother's pelvis left side. The which blade corresponds, that is the left blade. And always remember to first you introduce left blade, then introduce the right blade. Then tip should point upwards, cephalic curve inwards, pelvic curve forwards. And application I'll tell you. Then coming to Keeland's forceps. Keeland's forceps main difference here is not so long, but here there is a sliding lock, is the sliding lock is there. And this is for mainly for rotation in a occipital posterior, occipital transverse. This is most commonly used for mid pelvic. It is almost straight, absence of pelvic curve or slight reverse pelvic curve. It has a sliding clock which facilitates the correction of asynclitism. Asynclitism means deflexed head. When the flexion is not well flexed, that deflection is corrected by Keeland's forceps. This is the short curved obstetric forceps. This is the forceps which we use commonly in hospital. This is the outlet forceps or Wrigley's forceps. Wrigley's outlet forceps. This is the forceps which we use regularly for in labor rooms. It is lighter, about 1/3 of the weight. Instrument is short. marked cephalic curve, slight pelvic curve. It's so called. Mainly Wrigley's forceps is the forceps which we use. Maximum distance between the closed blades. That closed blades means when you lock it. See, when you lock, this is the blades are locked means this is blades locking. In between head will be there. Maximum distance between the blades is 7.5 and minimum distance is 2.5. Maximum distance between the closed blades 7.5, at the tips it is 2.7. So classifications, then be outlet, low forceps, mid forceps, high forceps, but mostly we apply the outlet forceps. It is usually done when the +2 station or more. Usually the scalp should be visible at the introitus without separating the labia. That is +2 station should be there. But it is with even the baby push bearing down also, head is not coming out, then you can go for the outlet forceps. They stopped at +2, then you apply it. Scalp is visible at the introitus. The vaginal introitus, if you are able to see the scalp but not coming out, then you can apply the outlet. The fetal skull should reach the pelvic floor. These are all the prerequisites for applying outlet forceps. Sagittal suture should be in the right or left occipito, and sagittal suture should be in the epidiameter, anteroposterior. That sagittal suture should be exactly in the midline. Fetal head is near the perineum. Rotation less than 45 degrees. Low forceps means, see, for outlet forceps it should be at the introitus, and for low forceps at least at +2 you can go for low forceps. Here the fetal head has no, for outlet fetal head reached pelvic floor. Here fetal head did not reach pelvic floor. There the rotation is less than 45 degrees. Here for low forceps the rotation is 45 degrees or more than 45 degrees. Mid forceps is +1, like that it is mid forceps, but at least head should be engaged, that is the main thing. And mid forceps now we are not applying. High forceps it is impossible. Next, coming to functions of the forceps, what while applying the forceps, what facilitates the delivery is some traction will be there on the head. That is the main thing. And rarely you can do a rotation in a for a Killand's forceps. It forms a cage around the preterm head. See, for preterm you cannot use ventouse, but you can use forceps. And controlled delivery of after coming head of breech. Breech you cannot use ventouse. Breech means not for the buttocks, you cannot put the forceps. For the head only you are putting the forceps. And controlled delivery of the after coming head of breech. Next, Simpson's forceps. Delivery of the fetus with a molded head. If severe molding is there, you can use a Simpson's. Tucker McLean forceps. This is for multiparous women. Wrigley's forceps. Outlet can be used in for Wrigley's. Usually we use for both in normal outlet and also for cesarean. Also, if you need always any cesarean section, for you should keep a blade of forceps while starting a cesarean section, because after you may never know, the head may slip while delivering. So always keeping a blade of forceps on the OT table very important. Next, forces exerted by the forceps. Forces is for a primate is 18 kgs, for a multipara 13 kgs. See, the force is high. Prerequisites same for like ventouse, bladder empty, membranes ruptured, cervical dilatation. These should be for any both ventouse and forceps. But for ventouse, membranes rupture, bladder empty is important, but cervical dilatation full is not required for ventouse. But for forceps, full dilatation is needed. Presentation occipito anterior or direct occipito posterior. Ventus only occipito anterior. You cannot try for anything. Here, for occipito posterior, you can use a key lens, rotate it to occipito anterior and then deliver. And there should not be any CPD. This is both for forceps and ventus. And uterine contraction should be good. Then only your traction or force will help in delivering the baby. Head must be at the perineum. Sagittal suture should be in the midline, in the anterior posterior diameter. Head should be usually +2 to +4. Types of application, there are two types, cephalic application and pelvic application. Usually we do the cephalic application, that is you grasp the both sides of the head and deliver it. That is cephalic application. It is the ideal method of application because no compression effects on the cranium. This is the cephalic application. See, it should be exactly properly placed so that ears come in between the gaps. That should be the exact application. Biparietal, bimalar application forms the uniform grip. The sagittal suture should be like this, bisects the shank. This is the correct position. Pelvic application means you are feeling the pelvic walls and applying. You are not feeling the head while applying. This is very dangerous because sometimes if the head position is not proper, if it is unrotated, these forceps blades may injure the eyes, the nose. Somewhere it may, if you only the cephalic application exact properly, it will be applied with the ears at the blades. Other with the pelvic application, any facial injuries may occur, cranial injuries may occur. This must be avoided. Just a brief technique of how the outlet application or a low forceps application is done is first lithotomy position. Legs like this up and wide is the called lithotomy position, and dorsal lithotomy position, and proper analgesia. Analgesia means pudendal block is better. First identify which is left and right blade. Always introduce the left blade. Put uh, two fingers inside the perineum. Hold the handle and first introduce the left blade inside the perineum. Then first introduce like this and then rotate up to first vertically and then rotate up to here. See, first it is introduced like this and then it is rotated and the position is kept like this, and a person will be holding this. You give this handle to a person so that it stays in this place, left blade, and then you take the right blade and introduce it, and then you lock both. See, first introduce the left blade vertically, then rotate it, keep it in this position, then introduce right blade. See, compared to the pelvis, the blades are labeled. This is the left side of the maternal pelvis, so this is left blade. Right side of the maternal pelvis, right blade. Now the blades are locked, position is correct. Then now the traction should be given. Traction should be, how the traction should be there along the pelvic curve. This is the direction of traction. First downwards, horizontal, then upwards. Curve of Caras. This is the pelvic curve. So the traction also should be along the curve of Caras, then only the head will come out. Usually when after the locking of the forceps, first you apply the forceps blades, lock it, then give episiotomy, then pull out the head. Low forceps, first you should pull down and back, then straight, then out. So three parts: first down and back, down, first down, then straight, and then up. That is a pull. Whereas for outlet forceps directly, you can pull out and up, horizontal and up. And right blade is applied second, but it is removed first because it is the lock should be removed like that only. First right blade is removed. When you will remove the blade, forceps blades, when the head comes out, after when the head comes out, remove the blades, then pull the shoulders with your hands. Only for the delivery of the head only you are using the forceps. When the head comes out, remove the blades and do the delivery as normally how the normal vaginal delivery is done. It is done like that. In occipital posterior, you can traction is given, and till the root of nose is under the symphysis pubis, then upwards and then downwards. These are how the traction should be there, the position. In face presentation, also can the forceps blades can be applied. Here the blades are introduced along occipitomental. First in a face presentation, first chin comes out, then nose, eyes, brows, and occiput. Mid forceps, this is not much useful. Keyland's forceps is mainly for the deep transverse arrest, that is occipito-posterior has rotated to occipito-transverse and it has fixed there. It did not rotate to occipito-anterior. That is called deep transverse arrest. In deep transverse arrest, you can use Keyland's so that it can rotate it, and in a face, and so that is about Keyland's. Another thing is prophylactic forceps. Prophylactic forceps means it is not obstetrically required, but you are putting a forceps because yes, to cut short the second stage. For mainly medical conditions, it is used. Prophylactic forceps is named after Daly. This procedure of the prophylactic forceps means instrument is not different. The case is different here. Um, that is, if you leave it without forceps also, the mother may deliver, but it will take maybe half an hour to 1 hour time. But that may cause problems to the mother. And what are the conditions where you cut short the second stage are eclampsia, heart disease, post-seizure, post-maturity, low birth weight. Post-seizure, you can apply forceps, but there is a high chance of scar rupture. That is the thing you should put in mind. Post maturity, low birth weight, painful second stage, patients under epidural analgesia. Another term is trial forceps. This is done in an OT where just you give a trial before going for cesarean section. Just when you are when you have a slight doubt that with the forceps baby may come out, you are just doing like a last resort if you are going out, but you are in a doubt that it will not succeed. In such a setup, better take the patient to OT, put everything ready for cesarean, and then do a trial. If it succeeds, it's okay. Otherwise, go for a cesarean. That's called a trial forceps. Failed forceps means you have attempted for a forceps vaginal delivery, but it has failed in delivering the baby. That is called a failed forceps. What are the causes? Is incomplete cervical dilatation, unrotated occipito-posterior, CPD, unrecognized hydrocephalus, malpresentations, constriction ring, macrosomia, obesity, mid cavity for deliveries. So complications, I already have told you, maternal trauma is more with forceps. That is third degree tears, fourth degree tears, perineal pain, hematoma, PPH, urinary retention, incontinence, fistulas. Fetal complications usually not much, slight scalp lacerations, hematomas, orbital hematomas. That is when these will occur usually when your position is not right. Usually when the position is exact, when the ears are in between the fenestrations of the blades, usually this doesn't occur. Advantages of, what is the advantage of ventouse that I have already told you? Traction force is less in ventouse and low rate of maternal trauma, not a space occupying device. It can be used for an unrotated or malrotated head. Full dilatation is not required for ventouse. 8 centimeters dilatation you can go. Unrotated head or malrotated head you can go for ventouse because you can rotate it with the ventouse. And it's not space occupying, less force, less maternal trauma, less perineal injuries. But the disadvantage of ventouse is more fetal injuries, fetal, that to scalp injuries like cephalohematoma, intracranial hemorrhage, subgaleal hemorrhage. Okay. Next. So reduced maternal pelvic floor injuries is the main instrument of first choice. So if you try to reduce the maternal pelvic floor injuries, then ventouse should be the first option. Perineal injuries will be less with compared to the forceps. But it is time taking. Main disadvantage of ventouse is you cannot use when baby is in distress. Advantages of forceps over ventouse are when moderate traction is required, force, that is traction should be required more, then forceps will be more effective. It expedites fetal delivery, that is in fetal distress you cannot use ventouse because it takes long time. And in preterm you cannot use ventouse, but forceps is safe. And forceps can be used in face, breech, but ventouse cannot be used. Ventouse only for vertex. And in forceps, scalp injuries are less before the baby, retinal hemorrhages, jaundice, all these are not there usually with the forceps. Forceps perineal tears is the main problem. Scalp injuries to the fetal head, all these are less. And usually forceps is more successful compared to the ventouse. Ventouse chances of failure are more. Thank you.